Grant, you gotta stop doing this.
I know, it's just... I know he's in there.
Every time you say that, and every time you come up with nothing. And now you're getting cops called on you. And this is ridiculous. It has to stop.
Saturday marks 10 years.
I know.
He's just gotta be in there.
We haven't seen the man in 10 years either. Why not just tell me you're still having problems with it?
I don't know. I guess I was just embarrassed.
You still going to Dr. Bellingham's?
Yeah, but it's just more the same. He just keeps making me want to think about the day.
Why?
He says the more I can process it, the less power it has on me, and the more I can come to terms with everything with an eye.
Don't. It's okay. Do what the counselor said. Let's go through the memory again.
Come on, John. I don't want to do this right now.
No. You said it would help. Let's do it.
I remember him walking in the front door. Everything was going good. John was right by me. I remember watching him go in the garage. I heard him scream. I haven't seen him since.
Cut 2. John is in bed, wide awake and clearly thinking. The audio from Grant and the flashback scene start to play as the rain drones on in the background. Eventually, he gives in to his curiosity and gets up. He goes to an old storage closet in a less traveled area of the house and takes out a box. He takes the box back to his room and pulls out some old pictures of Mike and John, maybe a newspaper with the headlines like "Tour de France winner goes missing." We see the knife that he used to stab the man the first time, the same knife that was used to stab Mike. Eventually, he starts to drift off and remember the scene Grant was talking about. The year is 2008, about a year after John got back from Rhode Island where his brother Mike was killed by the man. John and Grant are on lookout with binoculars and walkie-talkies. We see Ahmad break into the house through the garage from the outside view. The camera does not take us inside. We see everything from Ahmad's perspective via his walkie callouts. After a few minutes, he starts screaming, and then we hear radio silence. This should let the viewer in on why Grant has been helplessly breaking into that house again, trying to find Ahmad. John's alarm clock sounds, and back in the present, he hits it and sighs.
Like I said, I'm not saying it's for sure gonna happen, but how do you say no to Magic Johnson offering you a house on the beach, max contract, and the opportunity?
Did he just get all that when he came to Cleveland?
Yeah, but they're not being this Golden State team. Here, if you're not gonna take it from me, I'm just gonna show you what I saw. John, look at this.
Oh my gosh.
It's gotta be him, isn't
I don't know.
it? All right, it's starting to come down. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, I'll meet up with you later, right?
Yo, Johnny Football, you alive, man?
What?
Yeah, I was just using that that app that you were talking to me about, you know, that Find My Friends app? Yeah, I saw you're in a cemetery. What's going on?
Yeah, visiting Mike. Well, what are you doing?
Oh, you know, just trying to ride the pony before I run with the bulls. What? You know you want this. Well, anyway, man, I was just wanting to check in to see how you're doing.
Yeah, I'm good, man. Thanks. See you Friday?
Oh, you know it. It's Mike Bull. All right, man, I'll see ya.
John is watching TV when he hears the sound of shattering glass. He looks into the next room from his seat and sees that somebody threw something into the kitchen. hesitantly walks over and sees that it's a rock with a message on it. It reads, "You're next." He rushes to his phone and calls Grant. Cut to Grant outside. Grant is playing with Jack as a callback to Nightmare on Rolling Oaks. He answers the phone and says he'll be right there. The two spend the night guessing what it could be and decide to go to the house the next day.
I don't know, man. Everything looks the same.
Yeah, but John, you can't just disregard last night. And the Twitter. Come on, let's go check it out.
Wait. We need to plan.
That was close.
The man can't take them both at once, so he jumps at Grant and teleports him out of the scene to a quarry. He disappears and comes back for John. They fight back and forth, but it's clear John is caught off guard at the prospect of losing another friend. Cut to Grant walking back on the highway. Back at the fight, John is still struggling. Eventually, he is overpowered and knocked unconscious. Cut to black with John's loss of consciousness. Cellar, night. The room comes into focus slowly as John regains consciousness. He sees a body on the ground across the room. It's the body he's been dreaming about. Its back is to John. He takes the glass out of his pocket that he's kept for a possible attack and begins to cut his ropes. There's a noise from upstairs. How much time does he have? He tries to listen to where it's coming from. It seems like only one set of footsteps, but he can't tell for sure. The camera here acts as John's eyes, looking around the ceiling in the room. The noise dies and John gets back to cutting. The ropes break free and he goes to the body. He turns him over and it's Ahmad. He doesn't look good. He's been through the ringer. John doesn't know how to react. He's been gone for 10 years. Ahmad begins to come to, almost as if he's been under a spell. John, what are... Ahmad is cut off by an embrace. The music swells. The two have a lovely friendship reunion. The noise from above begins again and starts descending, so Ahmad pulls away urgently with something to say. John, Grant isn't Grant. He's been taken too. Another noise, much closer this time, as stairs descend from the ceiling. The man walks down and notices the scene. A beat while they all stare at each other, not knowing who should make the first move. The man is caught off guard by their collective consciousness. The man teleports across the room, kicks John off of Ahmad, and grabs Ahmad, and the two are gone. No! He quickly runs to the stairs and heads up. It appears they were in some sort of hidden basement area. The stairs lead to another dark room with no sign of any life. He figures the man is coming back soon, so he climbs into a vent that is large enough for him to crawl in and begins crawling. Eventually, it leads out of the crawl space at the Lincolnshire house, which is the man's house. The garage door is open. Without any hesitation, he runs through the door to the outside world and heads right for his house. John's living room, night. John is icing his head while looking off vacantly. He's thinking about what Ahmad told him. Was Grant betraying him? How was Ahmad still alive? It was a lot to process. A knock comes at the door. John gets up and checks through the window. It's Grant, looking nervous. John opens the door enough for his head to peek out, but not all the way. Grant looks confused and starts trying to come in. Dude, I've been trying to call you all day. Where have you been? What happened? I managed to get away just in time. What about you? How did you escape? He took me to some quarry and then just left. I didn't even have to do anything. Why are you being weird? John walks out the door and closes it behind him. I saw Ahmad today. John tries to read Grant's response. Grant takes a step back, clearly caught off guard. What? What did he say? John thinks for a second and then says, he says that you've been possessed as well. He said that you were with the man. What? That's crazy. How do you even trust him? John starts to pace. He's sizing Grant up. I swear, he's lying. I'm not. You can trust me. You certainly didn't seem surprised when I mentioned that he was alive. Been gone for 10 years, and your first question is, what did he say? Well, of course it looks bad. I was just shocked that Ahmad was here. How was I supposed to know that my questions would be scrutinized? Come on, isn't this what the man wants? For you to doubt your allies? John pauses for a second, thinking this over. That did seem feasible. But why did the man spare Grant earlier? Did he just miss the target? Why wouldn't the man kill you earlier? I don't know, but John, if we were working together, why wouldn't we have turned on you then? This John couldn't answer, so he hesitantly sits down on the porch in silence. Grant joins him in the chair next to him, and the two sit in silence for a while. I would never betray you. Your friendship means everything to me. I'm sorry, man. It's been a hard day. I know you would. A picturesque shot of the two sitting together on the porch as the sun goes down, with the Rolling Oak street sign in the foreground. The two have been through a lot, but the strength of the friendship is touching. Okay, so this is the part in the movie where realistically I would like to add more scenes. However, we don't have any more shots, so I'm not just going to add pages of text. Let's just jump to the climax, okay? At this point in the movie, John and Grant have been lured to this foresty area by the man, and we are jumping into a chase scene. We're thrown into a chase scene. Think of when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are being chased by snatchers in the Deathly Hallows. We zig and zag by trees as John and Grant are being chased by the man. They are turned around and discombobulated. The man teleports all around them, but doesn't seem to be making any attempts on their lives. Sometimes he'll be gone for 20 seconds, but it still feels like he's always there to John and Grant. He's playing with them. There is a clearing up ahead with some daylight left, so the two head there, perhaps to try and gain their bearings. They reach the clearing. It's about 30 yards long, encircled by tall, thick trees. They are still lost. There is a man on the far side with something over his head and his hands tied behind his back. He seems to be alive, but he isn't struggling or moving. They head toward it, but slow their pace. About 15 yards away, the man appears behind him, and John and Grant stop as well. Perhaps the man could yell, "Stop!" as a funny throwback to Nightmare on Rolling Oaks. This is where it ends! The man is almost deranged. He seems ready for murder. John and Grant look at each other, prepared to fight. John reveals the knife he has with him, the same knife we saw earlier. They look at one another and then, resolutely, at the man. Cut to the Spikeball party. 3 people are waiting to spike. One of JD's friends is wearing ridiculous clothing, a la Richard Simmons workout gear. Come on, man, you said he'd be here soon. My quads are getting cold. He'll be here, all right. JD turns away and takes his phone out. Honey, come on, let's just play us 3. It's revealed that the girl who was calling him honey was the girl from the gym who walked away. Johnny Football, man, where are you, man? He opens the Find My Friends app and sees John's location loading. Back to the fight. The sun is setting. It is dramatic lighting. Dark, but well lit enough to see all the characters. The man yells into the sky. It is time! Grant stands straight and then smiles creepily. He walks toward the man and then turns and removes the rope from the hooded figure. Then he takes off the mask. It's Ahmad. They form a small wall in front of the man, who laughs evilly. John can't believe it. He's having a small panic attack. What? How? Surprise! John makes a small step with his foot, still brandishing his knife. Nuh-uh-uh! I wouldn't try that! John ignores the warning and continues to stagger toward him. The man quickly takes a step toward Ahmad and teleports them both. Ahmad ends up directly in the path of the knife as John walks right into him, stabbing him. The man teleports right back to where he was with Grant. Ahmad falls, dying, into John's arms. John is panicking and doesn't know what to do. He tries to take out the knife, but Ahmad stops him. Just leave it. The camera is close on the two of them. John is on his knees with Ahmad in his arms and slightly crying. How could you? Do you really want to know? John looks on angrily. The man prepares for his big bad guy monologue. Have you ever noticed that I look strikingly similar to your brother? John is silent. He is confused by the question, as it is very odd, but there was an uncanny resemblance. Well, it's time you learned the truth. He and I were twins at birth. He was 11 minutes older. Didn't take long for the doctors to recognize my abilities, jumping all over the room anytime I had an emotional outburst. Mommy and Daddy were at loss for what to do. Apparently I was no longer their son the second I showed any special abilities. The man is pacing back and forth telling his story, as John continues to sit there with Ahmad. I'm surprised they even had the hearts to keep me as long as they did, the cold-blooded beasts. As soon as I could walk, they gave me a bike and told me to get lost. As if a bike would solve my problems. I'm sure they mourned me for all about 3 hours before deciding they wanted another son. So, they made you. I've been hunting you ever since. What? Don't you get it? You stole my life! How is this possible? Oh, you learn to accept the impossible, just like Ahmad and Grant have. I found Grant rummaging around one of my houses early again this year. That was all I needed. He's been mine ever since. You killed them. You absolute psychopath. Oh, the death thing? Yes. It does still hurt. Knocks you out for a good 5-10 minutes. But then, the man stops pacing and faces John. Close-up shot of his face. You're back. Ahmad opens his eyes. He grabs the knife and stabs John. Close-up of John's face as his eyes get really wide. Cut to a crane shot from high above following a car on a winding road through the forest. The sun is completely down now and the road is lit from his headlights alone. Inside the car we see JD, who left the spikeball game to come look for John once he found out where he was. Shot from the dashboard on JD's face as he's looking around. We hear a noise as something crashes into the car. It's John, and he's cut up pretty badly. He's gotten away from the man somehow. He's bloody, but doesn't appear to be actively bleeding out. JD is dumbfounded and doesn't know what to say. Just drive. JD does not need a second reminder. He starts driving right away, looking over at John a few times to make sure he's okay. All of a sudden, John sits straight up. We look at John's face, and there is a slight smile as his eyes grow wide. The crane shot pulls back to show the car driving along the isolated road. All of a sudden, it seems to lose control, almost as if the driver is no longer in control. It swerves off the road and crashes.
That is the scariest thing that could happen on the job.
Dude, that has nothing to do with UPS.
Oh, no, dude, think back to the beginning of the story. I'm on my normal route, the kids come behind me on their bicycles, and that's where the narrative begins.
I feel like I just wasted 10 years of my life.